archives, and you have to be a member of the forums to see it. And then a lot of the resources associated with this feminist science fiction convention, including a very comprehensive wiki of feminist science fiction literature, they actually took them down because people were coming across the Something Awful forums and decided that they would deface anything associated with this group, which included this wiki, which really was just an informational resource, which is now back online. But so they actually, and a lot of people deleted their live journals, which sounds like, you know, the beginning to like every terrible story, and then she deleted her live journal. But they did, and the point is that this episode of griefing from the Something Awful group, or people associated with the forums, caused these women not only, you know, the pain and the sadness of being grieved, but it actually did cause them to take down a lot of content related to feminist science fiction in the end. And so it was, it's a really, I mean, griefing is a really interesting case of censorship that could really only happen in an age of social media where people are producing their own content and where anyone can become a celebrity that we make fun of for being fat or being whatever. And yet, I think it's something that, unlike these other kinds of censorship, isn't likely to go away, first of all, through any kind of regulation, and second of all, that it actually has an underside to it that's politically effective sometimes. So it causes censorship, but the other side of griefing, and this is what's so complicated, I think, about, oh, here's just something, this is actually from the forums, so you can get a sense of what Something Awful did. Pictures of fat women with funny faces. But griefing can also be used in the other direction, right? Like, it can be a form of grassroots censorship, it can be a form of grassroots, it can be a way that people shut each other down, but it can also be used very effectively, for example, in the case of Anonymous, who, I guess we didn't get to see the Anonymous talk earlier today, which really was depressing, but the group Anonymous has used griefing very successfully as a political tool to defang Scientology. And in fact, like, Scientology has taken one of the biggest hits publicly that it ever has because of this group of people organizing anonymously, the way that people do on the Something Awful forums or on 4chan, and just griefing the hell, trolling the hell out of Scientology. And that's something that I think we don't want to see that go away. We don't want to see that kind of grassroots speech go away. And I just wanted to give another very American example of how griefing and trolling work as positive political speech, or as political speech that we might want to foster. I don't know how many people remember the Paris Hilton for President video, but during the last US election, the guy who was running against Obama, McCain, did a political ad where he said, Barack Obama is a celebrity, and he just wants the fame and the glamour of presidency, which is kind of hilarious. But anyway, he basically compared Obama to Paris Hilton, which, again, seems like such an apt comparison in retrospect. And I mean that sarcastically. But anyway, so Paris Hilton decided to do her own video about running for president because she felt so empowered by McCain, you know, comparing her to Barack Obama. So you can look this up on YouTube. It's just called, like, Paris Hilton for President. But she basically just sat in a lawn chair. The video was launched on, you know, a variety of social media networks. And she said, like, well, some old guy said that I'm just like this other guy who's running for president, so I think I'll run for president today. Here's some ideas I have about policies for economics. And she had a bunch of great ideas about fixing the American economy. And that was passed around a lot, especially, obviously, in the United States, because, you know, we were all so anxious about the election. So anyway, so this was definitely a form of trolling. I mean, Paris Hilton trolled on YouTube against McCain, and I think it worked. I think people really responded to it. Possibly it even swayed a few voters that hadn't made a decision at that point. So I want to end by sort of concluding this discussion of emergent kinds of censorship by referring to a pretty old essay by Noam Chomsky, who's a political theorist and started out as a linguist, and even if you think his linguistics are dumb, he actually has some pretty interesting ideas about how the news media functions in the United States. And he's famous for saying that even when you have a free media, a so-called free media where everyone's allowed to express what they like, the media still labor under what he calls the bounds of the expressible. And the bounds of the expressible have to do with what we've been taught and what we have been led to believe are the proper kinds of things to say. And the way that those bounds around what's expressible get erected are through everything from socialization at home to the kinds of messages you get from the corporations that own the media organization that you write for. And in most countries, in the developed world and also in the developing world, media that's top-down media often comes from a corporate-owned or government-owned newspaper or magazine or publication. And so when you go to work at one of those places, in order to even get in the door, in order to get a freelance gig there, in order to get an interview there, you already have to have demonstrated that you're not going to go, say, work at The Economist and suddenly start saying, well, capitalism is just wrong. Why don't we just abolish the system? You know, obviously we need, you know, a system of sharing, and we need to destroy the music industry because it's just bad, right? The Economist isn't going to look on that with, you know, very favorably, and you would never have gotten the job in the first place if you had that opinion. So that's the bounds of the expressible. And so that's the way in which the media polices itself, even when it's supposedly free. And what I want to argue is that in social media and in social news sites and social news services, that the bounds of the expressible really need to be expressed as the bounds of the searchable. So things that can be searched on and found, where there's no burden placed on the speaker to be found, to be indexed, you know, those are the kinds of expression that you'll see. You'll see only the kinds of expression that that these companies allow you to search on, and not just companies, but the people who are using the services created by these companies. So what you see on Flickr or on Blogger or on Dig is all of the things that are easy for you to find because a large community of people has allowed you to find them. They haven't flagged them and made them go away. So there's still this huge boundary around what we're allowed to say and be heard. And that's very, very important if you're interested in fully free speech, that speech it's not just about being able to write something somewhere. It's about being able to write something somewhere that people can find and that you don't have to fight to make them find it. I don't have to argue with Google for 2